All right, we shall begin. Very good. Jaya Shriman Narayana. Jaya Bhagavan Shri Krishna. Jaya Shri Guru. Sanatana Dharma Jayate. Dharma Rashtra Jayate. Suryavansha Jayate. Om Hri Om. Namaste, everyone. It is absolutely my pleasure to be with you here for our live stream satsangha. As I believe most people know, this is a weekly service that is presented to everyone by the International Sanatana Dharma Society, the ISDS. The ISDS itself is probably the world's most unique organization. I don't say that lightly, actually. Oh, we're not a massive organization yet, but we are an organization who we are quite literally on the cutting edge. We are ourselves as a movement, the very tip of the spear of reintroducing, restoring Dharma to this world and every single sector of the human experience. So indeed, this is a very unique movement that is presenting this live stream to you today. And what we're going to be doing today is talking about something that is very important, and that is developing self-control. And this is a topic that indeed most people, if not everyone, needs to learn and needs to hear about. But before we jump into the topic for today and my commentary on several verses from the Bhagavad Gita, first I want to make a very important announcement. And that is that my very latest book, which is called Interregnum, Restoring Authentic Rulership in the Kali Yuga, is now available for purchase. And indeed, in a moment, someone will put the direct URL in the chat. So if you wish to purchase the book now, you can feel free to do so. It's available on Amazon. So really, it's very easy to find. People have seen that the easiest way of finding it is in the search function of Amazon. You just punch in two words, Interregnum and Acharya, and it will be the very first thing to come up. Sometimes if you just punch in Interregnum, it's the first thing to come up. And again, it's only been available for really about 48 hours at the most, something like that. It's available both in print version, but on Kindle as well. So if you want a digital copy of this book, you can certainly feel free to purchase that. And just talking about this truly briefly, about what this book is, what this book is about. Because next week we will have actually a book release celebration where we will talk very in depth about the book. I'll have copies of the book that I can show you. Yes, the book just came out to the point where as the author, I don't even have a copy yet. We're waiting here at the temple for multiple copies to come. But the book itself is based upon a talk that I gave as a live stream, maybe roughly 2 years ago, something like that, 1 or 2 years ago, I can't remember exactly when. Had a slightly different title, but the beginning of the title of the talk also was Interregnum. So if you want to look for that video, again, just go to the search feature on YouTube, and on our channel specifically, look up Interregnum, you'll find the live stream where I speak about this. And essentially, it is me commenting on 3 important verses from the Srimad Bhagavatam, in which I talk about philosophy of governance. And let me explain, this is a book that is not a political book per se. In other words, in the book I don't endorse candidates or parties or anything like that. No, it is a book indeed on political philosophy, on political science in the true academic sense of that term. Because of course we understand that Sanatana Dharma is not just, a religion, a spiritual path. It's a civilization. It is a civilization, it is a culture, and that being the case, unlike other religions, traditionally Sanatana Dharma has commented upon, when I say commented, I don't mean brief comments, on the contrary. We have arts and sciences that involve every single aspect of the human experience, and that includes political science. So in this book, Interregnum, I talk about what is true rulership, whether that's a king or a president or a premier or a prime minister, or for that matter, lower echelons of politicians, governor, senator, councilman, etc., dog catcher, basically from the highest to the lowest. And what is inauthentic rulership, i.e. corrupt rulership, and what is good rulership, what is actual authentic rulership. This is what I speak about in this book. And the book itself is a very, very inspiring, very positive book. It starts off, of course, as it has to, with the negative. It talks a little bit about, what is bad rulership? What is the bad rulership that we have today, all throughout the planet, etc.? What constitutes corrupt rulership? But then the book goes into its opposite. The book then begins to explain, this is what good rulership looks like. And this is what we are to aspire toward. This is what we are to expect from our leaders, etc. So the book ultimately goes into a very, very, very positive area in which, again, the book is white-pilled, as am I. That is very, very positive about the future. And the book is designed to give us hope that while it may be the case that, we look around at our so-called rulers today and we see people who we're very unhappy with, that's not going to be the situation forever. That in the near future, and indeed we are beginning to see this on a smaller scale, but increasing exponentially, we will begin to see authentic rulership in the world again. And in our lifetime, indeed, very soon, in the next several years. So that is, in the smallest nutshell, what the book is about. So again, Interregnum, it's available. Please feel free to purchase it today. And indeed, I've been writing up a storm. Sometime next month, Radical Universalism, the second edition of this book, will be available. And it's going to be, I've added approximately 50 or 60 pages to the original edition of this book. And I've changed a lot in it, including a little bit of the focus. It's going to be a larger book, approximately 220 pages, maybe a little bit more than that. And again, that book will be available next month, and then more books to come. I'm writing truly like a storm, to the point where, I don't like giving promises as far as dates, but let's say at this rate, every few months a new book is going to be released. So with that, again, thank you for your indulgence. We're all very happy here at the temple that Interregnum is now available. And with that, let us now dive into the talk for today. And again, what we're going to be speaking about today very specifically is indeed what it means to have self-control. And before I comment on these different verses from Bhagavad Gita, all of which are pretty well known, but again, it is important to comment on these verses if we're going to understand what is meant by self-control and its opposite, to not have self-control. Let me just talk a little bit about why I chose to even speak about this topic today. Self-control. This is something that is crucial to what it means to be a successful human being in this world, to the point where, I often point out what is true culture versus what we have in modernity, what is true civilization versus what we have in modernity, and on like this. I always like to make these very important juxtapositions such that we understand that what we are experiencing today, all the problems that we have been experiencing for especially the last 50 years, 60 years, something like that, is not the norm. And then I like to juxtapose that with what is the norm, Vedically speaking, spiritually speaking. And with the idea of reestablishing the norm, which we are going to do. Oh, this is, one could say, one of the central focal points of, again, the International Sanatana Dharma Society, is we are going to reestablish, we are going to restore the norm. What is meant by the norm? That which is dharmic in this world. Now, when it comes to the idea of self-control, this is indeed one of these important themes in which we can see this juxtaposition between how things are understood in authentic, real, true, functional cultures versus today. When it comes to self-control, first of all, what do we even mean by this? Well, we mean the individual having the ability to employ their will, their free will, in such a manner that they have the ability to accomplish what their will desires, to do so with as little effort as possible, wasting as little time as possible, and doing so successfully. That's what it means to have self-control. And then, of course, what does it mean to lack self-control? Well, the opposite of what I just said. You want to do something and you can't do it for one reason or another. Part of you will not cooperate. Now, this is important. Let me get to that part now. That part of us will not cooperate, thus we don't have self-control. When we speak about self-control, of course, we're speaking about self-control in a myriad of different ways. Because we, of course, we're multidimensional beings. When you look at the human person, what are we? Well, yogically, in accordance with yogic ontology, we exist on several levels. And going from the least important to the most important, first we have physical body. We have the actual physical body. We have emotions now going up. We have mind. We have intellect. We have sense of identity. But then finally, we don't have, but we are Atman. We are that unit of consciousness. These are all the aspects of who we are. And we all know this. We experience this in different ways. Sometimes, we're lost in our mind. We're lost in thought. We're lost in so many different things. And let me just say this. On every single one of these levels of who we are, what we see is that, indeed, people today no longer have control. Indeed, it's interesting, even physically, a lot of people don't have control. I don't want to talk too much about that, because then that deals with medicine, etc., deals with health issues, etc., etc. But on every level, people today do not seem to have a sense of control. This is true physically. This is true emotionally. Emotionally, what we've seen is that, again, 50, 60 years ago, did it mean that people 50 or 60 years ago had perfect control, that all people had all control over every aspect of themselves? No, of course not. But they had more. They had more control, generally speaking. So what we see today is that emotionally, people don't have control over themselves. For those individuals who go to those sides of the internet that show the reality of what is actually happening in the world, and you see common individuals in fast food places, in restaurants, and all sorts of places, at sporting events, suddenly bursting into anger and having fist fights with each other. Again, they don't show this on mainstream media. All you have to do is go 1 inch away from mainstream media, and you see this all the time now, that people have no control over their emotions. There can be a kid's softball game going on. Suddenly the parents will start having fist fights, literally, with each other. People don't control their emotions today. But then, it doesn't always just come out in the form of, mass violence like this. Even with individuals, people will allow themselves to become overwhelmed with negative emotions today. And this is something I've spoken about quite extensively in various talks that I've given in the past, where indeed, as individuals, we are not to deny our emotions and be emotionless beings, on the one hand, but on the other hand, we're not to lose control over our emotions and allow our emotions to dictate our actions. We cannot allow the emotions to be how we make decisions in life. That, all right, with everything being neutral, I would have made this logical choice. But now I'm very depressed 2 hours later, and now I'm going to make a bad choice. Or now 3 hours later, I'm very angry. Oh, I'm going to make a different choice. No, we cannot allow our emotions to dictate our decisions because we will regret it afterwards, and usually we do. So indeed, people have difficulty controlling their emotions. People have difficulty controlling their minds. Oh my Lord, this is something that I've spoken about extensively, to the point where I'm not going to go into it extensively now, because just watch some of my previous videos, where indeed so many people live within the mind, but unconsciously so. In other words, they are not using that free will to go into their mind, retrieve information, and do something good with it, but rather they're lost in their own mind, thinking, constantly going over the same problem again and again and again and again, to the point of becoming truly debilitated when it comes to performing positive action in the world. And then intellect. Oh my Lord, people don't have control over their intellect. It's very interesting. I've said this many times. I'm a person with a PhD. In fact, you don't even want to know how educated I am, actually, and the individuals who I have given lectures to, audiences of truly professors at academic conferences. I'm an educated person, extremely so. I don't like intellectuals, despite that fact. I like intelligent people, but not intellectuals. Why is this the case? Because just like all the other echelons of forms of being who we are, intellectuals very often will be individuals who they are lost in their intellect. They actually don't have control over their intellect. They will allow their intellect mixed with false ego to dictate everything for them. And thus, indeed, they become like academic robots, to the point where they are not using their free will in order to truly think. Rather, whatever the academy tells them is the case, whatever the university system tells them is the case, they will just go along with this. They don't have actual control over their intellect. They can't, interestingly, actually think. And then we have those individuals who are enwrapped in their identity. Now, false identity. See, we have a true identity. That is Atman. That is who we are as spirit, as consciousness. But being an illusion, the vast majority of individuals who find themselves in this world are individuals who they are slaves of ahankara, of constructed identity, of false identity. So thus they identify with everything and anything that comes their way. Any authoritative person who will tell them, oh, this is who you are, this is how you must be, this is how you must think, and they will become a slave to that fake, false identity. So again, no self-control, no self-control, no self-control on any of these echelons, any of these various aspects of who we are as a person. Now, what does this lead to? Well, do I need to even tell you what it leads to? I know I have a very intelligent audience. If you don't have self-control over any of these aspects of who you are, you're lost. You're someone who is a slave of these various constructed realities of who you think you are. Again, whether it's the physical, the emotional, the mental, the intellectual, or identity-wise. You become a slave of these things. You're not you. And not being you, not knowing who you truly are, you're not even making decisions for yourself. You're making decisions for these artificial constructs that you think that you are, that society, that certain institutions have told you that you are, but which you are not. You're not making the right decisions for yourself. Now, all that being said, indeed, we want to develop self-control. We need self-control. How do we do this? Well, we do this via what is called the yoga system. This means both philosophically, but most especially in practice. We do this through the yoga system. What it means to be a yogi, and let me just say, for those of you who have been with me for some time, who consider yourselves to be my students, you know what I'm about to say already. But for those of you who do not, this is important. When I talk about yoga and being a yogi, needless to say, I'm not talking about someone in LA wearing yoga pants and with a yoga mat under her arm and just strolling off to a hot yoga session so she can lose some weight. Oh, that's important too. The physical aspect is important. But in this specific context, when I'm talking about self-control vis-a-vis yoga, What I'm talking about is being a yogi in the true sense of this term. That is, an individual who is practicing spirituality in a systematic manner in such a way that they can progressively become better and better, have more and more self-control, get rid of that which they are not, rediscover the good, the true that they are, to the point of self-realization, full self-realization, what we would often call enlightenment, but then leading to something greater than that. Oh, there's something greater than merely enlightenment, and that is God consciousness, knowing that which is our source. This is what I mean by being a yogi. Well, we could say that one of the central foundations of what it means to be a yogi is to develop self-control. When you meet someone who is a true yogi, and this is a rare thing, of course, to meet today, but they are out there. When you meet a true yogi, what you find is someone who is supremely in self-control, in control of who they are. They control everything of who they are. They control their body, they control their emotions, they control the mind, the intellect, they control identity. They are identifying with who they wish to identify with, and what they wish to identify with is the true self. And then ultimately, they are living as Atman into the world. That is a true yogi. What they're seeking is self-control. So indeed, this is what we are all to aspire toward, is self-control. And self-control, this is the last thing I need to say about this, in a relaxed way. You see, when it comes to self-control, as I'm going on and on about this, talking about self-control, probably the sort of images that come to people's mind are, someone like a soldier, or someone who is very rigid, etc., etc. Even when it comes to a yogi, they're thinking of someone living in a cave, and they've done so much austerity, they're skin and bones, etc. That too. There are people who can be like that. That's fine. But what we're talking about is someone who is in self-control and in contentment, being so. That's the true yogi. Someone who is in self-control and relaxed about it. When you meet a true yogi who has self-control, you're not going to meet someone who, again, they're so rigid, you're almost afraid that they're going to snap in half. Something like that. No. Rather, what you see when you meet someone who is a self-controlled yogi is someone who, if anything, interestingly, they're more relaxed than the typical person. Not in a lazy way, you see. Not in a lazy way. They're not just kind of slumped over. No. You can tell they have control because they're sitting properly, they're breathing properly, because they enunciate as they speak, because they have dignity, because they know what to think, what to say, what to do in the world, etc. But at the same time, there's someone who, when you're in their company, you're relaxed. You're content. You feel good. You feel joy. So this is what we are to aim at, is to be such a yogi, to be someone who indeed has self-control. Now, all that as preface. Now we're going to jump into these several verses of the Bhagavad Gita. And again, these are well known. These are from the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita. And this is a sequence of several verses. So with that, let's go through these verses now, and I will comment on them. We're going to begin with Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2 and verse 60. And this is Bhagavan Sri Krishna who is speaking, and he's speaking specifically to Arjuna. And Sri Bhagavan Uvacha, Lord Krishna says, "The senses are so strong and impetuous, O Arjuna, that they forcibly carry away the mind even of a man of discrimination who is endeavoring to control them." Oof. Very nice. This is how we begin. This is what Krishna is telling Arjuna. Now, several things to be said about this. As I think people understand, with each one of these verses, I can give easily an hour or sometimes multiple hour commentary on each one of these verses, and I have in the past. So we're going to have to go through this a little bit quickly. But let's say, first of all, who is Krishna speaking to? I said this before. He's speaking to Arjuna. Interestingly, he's not speaking to just anyone. He's not talking to someone who is known to be a person who is lacking self-control. On the contrary, he is speaking to a warrior, not just a warrior, but a warrior supreme, an individual who the last thing you can accuse him of is having lack of self-control. And yet Krishna is saying this to him. Why is he saying this? Well, because of the theme of what we see in this verse. Krishna is trying to understand, doesn't matter who you are, if you're within this material world, it's difficult to have self-control. It's difficult to control the senses. And he's talking about the senses very specifically. The senses themselves being a bridge between the empirical and then the inner world. Because it is via the senses, and the senses are just a via medium. They're a way in which we as the inner person, and every aspect of who we are, mind, intellect, consciousness, etc., that we can now interrelate with that which lies outside of ourselves. So those are the senses. If we don't control the senses, we can't control anything. We can't control body, we can't control mind, etc. But what is the theme of what Krishna is saying in this verse? You wish to control yourself, indeed to have self-control, to control the senses, and thus every other aspect of who you are. It's tough. It's difficult. So again, let's go through this. The senses, again, that via medium by which we have self-control, by which we know the world, we know everything. The senses are so strong and impetuous. So indeed, the senses are a strong thing. And it's interesting, very often, especially today, for those of us who live in the West, right now we have an audience of people in dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of nations. I believe it's up to 130, 140 nations who watch the live stream, either live or the recording, days, weeks, months later. In the West especially, we are living in a luxurious realm where to have self-control is especially difficult. Why? We have everything around us, every kind of food, every kind of pleasure, every kind of luxury, etc. So what we see is that, especially, again, when we live in such circumstances, when there are things that we want to eat, that, oh, we're smelling something coming from a restaurant, oh my God, that smells great. And of course, what happens? The senses will drag us away. And we will want to do that. We will want to go there, or we see something, or we hear something, etc. So indeed, the senses are strong. And as a result, it is difficult to have that self-control. So this is what Krishna is saying. And indeed, they forcibly carry away the mind, and of whom? Of whom? Even of a man of discrimination. So in other words, even of an individual who they should have self-control. They're an intelligent person. Even with that person, they can lack self-control. Indeed, again, I was in academia. I knew many, many professors. This is one reason, one of 100, though I'm not in academia now. I have known many, many professors who, world-class experts on blah, 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 whatever's the field, and they had no self-control whatsoever. They couldn't control their impulses in any way whatsoever. So this is what Krishna is saying. Even if you are a person of discrimination, still you can lack self-control. All right, with that, let's now go on to the next verse. And this is again Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, but now we're looking at verse 61. Krishna says, "One who restrains his senses and fixes his consciousness upon me is known as a man of steady intelligence." So very nice. Krishna here cuts to the chase. And he explains how it is that we can gain self-control. It is by focusing our senses, focusing our awareness, focusing our consciousness, focusing everything that we are, that we have, that we wish to be, upon Krishna, upon God. And in this way we have self-control. But let's go through this. One who restrains his senses. So indeed, one who has control over the senses. And the senses, they have been compared to wild horses. You can imagine that you have a chariot. You're the charioteer, or even worse, you're the passenger in the chariot. And you've got 5 horses that represent the senses. And they are not under control. And forget about the horses as a team taking you where you do not want to go. No, each horse wants to go in a different direction. And you're a passenger, and what can you do? You feel forced to go wherever these senses are taking you. So instead, we are to restrain the senses. We are to restrain the senses. And afterwards, we'll go more deeply into what this means. But indeed, just as a summation, this means the yogic process. This means via meditation, via yoga, via following the yamas and niyamas, the ethical practices, practicing the ethical practices and principles of yoga, etc. In this way, doing this with diligence, doing this in a systematic, conscious way over a period of time, it comes to the point where we can control the senses. So, all this being said, let's go on. One who restrains his senses, but now, more important, and fixes his consciousness upon me, Krishna consciousness, God consciousness. One who purposefully, and again, what are we talking about? This is a sadhana verse. This is a sadhana verse. And that being the case, what we're talking about is the practice of meditation. Via the practice of meditation and taking all of our awareness, i.e., everything that we are sensorially, even physically, certainly mentally, etc., and purposefully making ourselves focus upon God. In this way, we come to the point where rather than two things. Rather than focusing on those things that are going to take away our self-control, well, now we are practicing self-control by doing something purposefully. But also B, we are now performing what is called upasana. That is, we are having proximity to that which is truly the divine and the origin of who we are. That being the case, we will become positively influenced to the point where our will becomes stronger, among many other benefits that occur when we are meditating upon God. So this is why Krishna says, and he fixes his consciousness upon me. And interesting, he ends in this way. Such a person is known as a man of steady intelligence. So interestingly, getting back to what I was saying before about how I don't like intellectuals, I like intelligent people. This is how we become indeed not an intellectual, but an intelligent person. What is an intelligent person? An intelligent person is not known, interestingly, merely by the numerical factor, merely by the quantity of things that they know. You know, here's a contest, who's the world's most intelligent person? It comes down to the top 5. That person who managed to retain one more thing, one more bit of information in their mind versus contestant number 2, who came in second place. That person wins. No. Again, those are intellectuals. That's worthless. We're talking about people who are intelligent. And Krishna defines this in this way. A man who has steady intelligence. In other words, an intelligence that does not waver. An intelligence that serves him. Not merely a matter of quantity. How many facts can you spew? No. A person who knows how to use his intelligence in order to truly help himself with wisdom and to help others. Let's go on to the next verse. That was 61. Now we go on to chapter 2, verse 62. Now it gets especially interesting, where we see the process of indeed losing self-control. Krishna says, while contemplating the objects of the senses, a person develops attachment for them. And from such attachment, desire develops. And from desire, anger arises. So very interesting. Really, verse 62 and 63 go together. They're one unit, but they're also separate verses. And just to make this a little bit easier for people, we're going to do one verse at a time. So we'll stop here with this verse, and let's talk about this. What we are beginning to see here is a sequential causal sequence that occurs with an individual. So this is something that is cause and effect, cause and effect, cause and effect, that is leading to something terrible. What Krishna is speaking about here is what happens to that individual who does not have self-control, who loses control over who they are. So let's go through these various steps. First of all, while contemplating the objects of the senses. So this is something that every human being must do. Indeed, every living being on this planet. Every living being has senses. People don't know this. Even trees have senses. They're just much more limited. Every living being has senses. They have a way in which they can interact with the external world. That's what a sense is. This being the case, while indeed as human beings we are contemplating those things that are outside of ourselves, what then happens? A person develops attachment for them, Krishna explains. So in other words, this is the story of our life from the moment that we're born until almost the moment that we pass away. Of course, not if you're a yogi, but for most people, 99.9% of individuals in the world. That is that in interacting with that which is outside of ourselves, what occurs? One of three things. Either we encounter something and it's kind of neutral. Oh, it's a wall, whatever. It's a floor, whatever. Or we encounter things that we are averse to. That is, oh, I don't like that. Let me get away. I don't like that person. I don't like that thing. Or it's opposite. Oh, I like that. Oh, that I want that object of my senses. Oh, there's candy. I'm a child. There's candy. I'm an adult. Oh, there's a beautiful woman, a beautiful man, whatever it is, a beautiful car, whatever it is that attracts us. So thus we develop attachment to these objects of the senses. Now let's go on. Once we have that attachment, then desire develops. So again, first it starts with attachment. That is that, okay, don't like that, like that. Well, yes, that I like. Oh, I have an attachment toward that, but now you desire it. And you begin to have a desire that becomes stronger and stronger and stronger for a person, for a thing, for an object, etc., an object of our senses. Now, interestingly, this is where Krishna ends this verse is with this last clause. From desire, anger arises. Interesting. Now, at first, a person who maybe would not contemplate this very deeply would say, oh, well, how does that follow? How does it follow? We've all had this experience thousands of times. And that is, okay, you desire something. Have you ever seen a child? And we're dealing just with children. Trust me, this applies even more to adults. But it's easier to see this with children. A child will develop a desire. Oh, a 2-year-old, 3, 4, 5, whatever. Oh, mommy, 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 look, I want that toy, I want that toy. The child has seen the toy. It's been an object of their senses. They develop attachment. They desire it now. The desire increases. And it gets to the point where if they don't get that toy, they begin to get angry. Well, we see this with children. We also see this with adults every single day, that anger will develop. Oh, what do I desire? Oh, I'm just making up a scenario. I'm a 22-year-old young man living in my mother's basement. I don't have a job. I don't have a girlfriend. I don't have prospects for life, etc., etc., etc. I desire these things. In fact, I desire so much that if anything, oh, I wish I had the most beautiful wife on earth, and I wish I had $1 million right now, and a mansion, and blah, 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 blah. But there is a disconnect between what they desire versus what they have ability to acquire. What happens? Anger. They begin to get frustrated. They get frustrated with themselves. They get frustrated even more so with the world. They begin to blame everyone, everything around them. And like little children, oh, it's not fair, oh, it's not fair, oh, it's not fair, etc. The mantra of the child. Whenever you hear someone saying blank is not fair, that's a child. Even if they're 50 years old, if they're 90 years old, that's a child. And it's a manifestation of frustration. It's a manifestation of anger because that individual is not able to acquire what they desire. So thus, indeed, anger arises. So Krishna is quite correct about this. But indeed, it doesn't stop there. Let's go on now to the very next verse, which is chapter 2, verse 63. And Krishna continues with anger. Krishna says, from anger, delusion arises. And from delusion, bewilderment of memory. When memory is bewildered, intelligence is lost. And when intelligence is lost, one falls down again into the material pool. So indeed, we see loss of self-control, loss of self-control. Let's continue now this sequence. So we stopped with anger in the previous verse. Now we pick up with anger. Once an individual has anger, delusion arises. How interesting. Again, what human being has not experienced this? You get angry to the point where you can no longer think. You are now in delusion, in complete delusion. You're now blaming the entire earth, the entire world, all the gods and goddesses, blaming God. This is how atheists are born, by the way. For those of you who thought that they were sprouted from some intellect factory. No, atheists are not rational beings. Atheists are children. Atheists are individuals who, no, they don't take shelter of reason as they like to portray themselves. They take shelter of childish petulance. So indeed, delusion will arise because an individual cannot get what they desire, and they get angry to the point where they now want to blame everyone and everything around them for why they cannot get what they desire. So again, the 22-year-old living in his parents' basement, rather than putting two and two together, oh, what? I want a beautiful woman, and no, she has to be a model. No, she has to be the best. She has to be a model. And, she has to be the perfect wife, and I have to make $1 million a year, etc., etc., etc. And I'm going to gain all this by playing video games for 8 hours a day. And thus, anger and delusion arises. Instead of that individual saying to himself, oh, I wish to have these things. Oh, that's fine. It's kind of materialistic, but that's all right. I really desire these things. Let me take this video game, toss it out of the window, make sure I'm in a very high building. There's no one I can hurt down below. But let me hurl this video game, Nintendo, whatever it is, little box, hurl it from the highest place I can to make sure that when it hits the ground, it smashes into 1,000 pieces. Let me, number one, do that. Number two, let me move away from my parents, get my own place. Let me work hard. Let me get an education. Let me stop blaming the world around me, etc., etc. Let me go to the gym. Let me get physically fit. Let me take care of my appearance. Let me become an individual who is virtuous more than anything, such that when people meet me, they know they are meeting a good person, and thus they are attracted to me, and I can make good friends. And indeed, I can attract a good woman, etc., etc. Rather than doing all this, the individual wishes to continue playing their video game, living in the basement, and blaming the world. Delusion arises. Now let's go on. From delusion, bewilderment of memory. This is very, very important. When we get angry to the point where now we're living in a fantasy realm of anger, blaming everything and everyone around us for our problems, indeed, we lose our memory. Because no matter where we are, where we have found ourselves, we have encountered at the very least some little bits of wisdom along the way. And more than this, deep within, we have that platonic store of wisdom that is there within us as memory. We know really intuitively what we should be doing. We know that we don't have a reason to be angry. We know that we are to access that wisdom as much as possible and to, in a very calm way, breathing calmly, then do the right thing. We lose all memory of this. We lose memory of who we truly are. Even if, again, let's say we're someone who, we've read Marcus Aurelius. We've read the Bhagavad Gita. We've read a little bit of Plato. We've tried to acquire some wisdom. When you're in this angry state of delusion, the memory is gone of all good things. And all the lessons that you've learned, suddenly you can't remember. It's like you have temporary amnesia. So indeed, oh my Lord, how wise is Krishna with this sequence? This sequence is indeed radically logical. This is indeed human psychology given to us by God himself. And Krishna is indeed correct by this. We lose all memory of who we are and every good thing that could otherwise guide us to having self-control. At this point, yes, the person has lost control of who they are, but let's go on. When memory is bewildered, intelligence is lost. Indeed, when you don't have memory of those valuable lessons that you've learned in the past that form your personal storehouse of wisdom and thus should give you guidance. Again, it doesn't matter who you are. You must have encountered wisdom in the past. A video of someone who hopefully really knew what they were talking about, or a book that you read, etc. You must have acquired wisdom. Now, in this state of angry delusion, you have no good memory anymore. You have lost it. You've forgotten it. Now, not having that wisdom, your intelligence is lost. You seemingly have intelligence, but now that intelligence has gone from something that is a living intelligence to now indeed something that's purely factual, and even then, not factual itself because you're in delusion. So you still have the ability to access some data, but it's ultimately quantitative and meaningless. You don't have wisdom. You're not using your intelligence correctly. So indeed, at this point, your intelligence is lost. You've lost control over who you are. And now, finally, Krishna ends. And when intelligence is lost, one falls down again into the material pool. So in other words, at this point, once you have lost your intelligence, you've lost everything. Because intelligence is the tool that we use to discern, to discriminate, to think rationally, to think with wisdom in such a way that now we can actually have control over our lives. See, at this point, what are we talking about? An individual who no longer has control over their lives. They no longer have self-control. You see how in these two verses alone, so much was covered. So much was covered. The emotional, the mental, the intellectual, etc., etc. To the point where, indeed, at this point, a person no longer has self-control. So we've seen negatively how a person indeed can fall into this trap. But now let's go on, because now it begins to become very, very positive. Now in verse 64, chapter 2 of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says to Arjuna that, on the contrary now, one who can control his senses by practicing the regulated principles of freedom can obtain the complete mercy of the Lord and thus become free from all attachment and aversion. What a beautiful, beautiful verse. And again, very positive, very optimistic. Krishna is now telling us precisely how we can have self-control, how we can begin to develop this self-control. And essentially what he's saying is through yoga, but let's look at this verse. One who can control his senses, and how? By practicing the regulated principles of freedom. That's yoga. That's sadhana. That is systematic practice of spiritual unfoldment. What is called sadhana in Sanskrit. Sadhana simply means concentrated, systematic spiritual practice. So in other words, systematic. Not just, oh yes, today meditate for 5 minutes. So tomorrow for 2 hours. Next day, don't meditate at all. Oh, I feel like doing a puja on this day of this week. Oh, this day, I won't do anything. I'll take a rest. And no. If an individual, quote unquote, practices spirituality in this way, they're not practicing. On the contrary, what is meant by sadhana is systematic, continuous practice, steady practice of spirituality on a daily basis in the same way, every day. And in this way, progress being consequently made. So this is what Krishna is saying here, that one who can control his senses by practicing the regulated principles of freedom. Now it's interesting, this is all Prabhupada's translation. Indeed, it's truly Prabhupada's translation. The only translations of Prabhupada's that I use are the original. This is from the 1972 Macmillan edition of Bhagavad Gita as it is. So this is quite literally Prabhupada's translation. And how interesting how that he translates this as regulated principles of freedom. I love that. Because when we think of regulated principles, see, if he had just said, oh, regulative principles, It sounds a little bit oppressive. Again, sadly, for people raised in an Abrahamic culture especially, we sometimes think of religion as, something that forces itself on us. You must do this, you must do that. In Sanatana Dharma, it's very different. We practice because we know that it benefits us. Not because, we're going to go to hell, we're committing a mortal sin, this kind of sin, that kind of... No. We practice because it's like practicing brushing our teeth. It's like practicing hygiene. It's like practicing exercise. We know that, this is something that, do I have a choice? Sure, I can choose not to ever brush my teeth. That would be a horror for you and those around you. We have choice. But we know that, why do we practice these things? They're good for us. In the same way, we practice spirituality, we practice these regulated principles because they help us and we grow. But more, Prabhupada translates this as regulated principles of freedom. When we practice yoga, meditation, again, any form of positive sadhana, these make us free. And why? It goes back to my preface. Because these things teach us self-control. When we have self-control, we are free. We are free. See, it's the person who lacks self-control who is a slave. They become very quickly, almost automatically, a slave of their senses, a slave of their body, a slave of their emotions, and on and on. When, on the other hand, we practice systematic sadhana, systematic spiritual practice, yoga, we become free. And why? Because we gain that self-control. Because we can live in this world peacefully, in such a way that external things, and when I say external, I mean everything. You see, not just what would come to mind as external, meaning things literally outside of ourselves. The body is external to us. I'm talking about the body. The mind is external to our true self. When we practice yoga, when we have self-control, we're living in such a manner that that which is external to ourselves can no longer dictate to us. On the contrary, we are in control of those things and we use them as our tools. We use the body as a tool, and thus we tell the body, you will sit in Ardha Padma Asana for 1 hour and give a talk. You will sit in Ardha Padma Asana for 1 hour and you will meditate, physically unmoving, other than the breath and the heart, etc. You have firm control over the body, firm control over the emotions, over the mind, and etc., etc. So indeed, once you have this, what do you have? Freedom. Because now you're not a slave of your tools. Imagine, everyone has tools. Even someone who is the least handy person in the world, you got a hammer. You must own a screwdriver somewhere, pliers. And then those people who are really into such things, they got tool chests, toolboxes. We all have tools. Imagine if you have to, it's so silly, but I'm going to say it anyway. Yes, imagine, you have to nail a hammer, you have to nail a nail into a wall, and you grab the hammer, and the hammer starts dictating to you, no, don't hit the nail, no, hit the wall, hit this, hit yourself. It's so silly, isn't it? But imagine if that were the case. Now, it is silly, isn't it? And yet, that's what you're allowing your body and your mind and your emotions to do to you. Is it still silly? No, because we know that's the case. You're allowing your tools to dictate to you instead of the other way around. Well, what does it mean to be free? Could you be free if indeed every time you touch the tool, suddenly the tool started talking to you and dictating to you what to do? No, that's not freedom. The tools exist to serve you. In the same way, when you have self-control, you have freedom to do what you wish using all the tools that you have properly. Not just your hammer, but the body, the emotions, the mind, the intellect, etc. So indeed. Now let's go on with this verse. So that individual who is indeed practicing these regulated principles of freedom can obtain the complete mercy of the Lord. So very interesting. we see again and again many things. Again, too much to even talk about in this short period of time. But again and again, when we look at all the verses throughout the totality of the Vedic scriptures, what we see is that self-control, self-realization, etc., they are important. They are crucial on the one hand. On the other hand, always, again and again and again, the Vedic scriptures remind us of something. There's one thing, and only one thing that's greater, and that is to serve God, to love God. So here again, Krishna is saying this, that, oh yes, you can gain complete control over the senses, but more, you can also obtain complete mercy of the Lord, which is even more important, and indeed why we gain control over ourselves, and thus become free from all attachment and aversion. So this duality, attachment, aversion, what I was saying before, oh, I don't want that, oh, I want this. We become free of this. Does it mean we can no longer discriminate? No, we can still discriminate. Indeed, we still have preferences. No, I don't prefer that. Yes, I prefer this, but it's without attachment, without that anger arising, that uncontrolled desire, etc. We have preferences, but they're calm preferences. They're preferences in which we are in control. Now let's go on a little bit to the very last verse that we're going to look at. And this is verse 65. So this is chapter 2, verse 65. For one who is so situated in the divine consciousness, the threefold miseries of material existence exist no longer. In such a happy state, one's intelligence soon becomes steady. So beautiful. This is how Krishna ends this section. Again, a very, very positive way. So indeed, we've seen the negative. Oh, this is what it looks like when a person loses control over themselves. But now we've seen, oh, this is how you gain control, and this is the ultimate result. So very quickly, just because we officially end in 2 minutes, I would like to take a few questions. I know people will be disappointed if I don't, and I want to take a few questions. We'll go through this quickly. So for one who is so situated in the divine consciousness, in other words, for an individual who, yes, they have full control over themselves, they have self-control, they know who they are living as Atman within the world, but also they have now accessed the mercy of God. They now also have God consciousness, so thus they're in this divine consciousness. What happens is the miseries of material existence no longer exist for that person. And why? Where do the miseries arise? From whence do the miseries arise? Materiality. Thank you. They arise from materiality and, of course, our attachment to them. See, remember again that sequence. Oh, we observe the objects of the senses, we become attached, we desire them, then we get angry, etc., etc. So, indeed, this is where material misery arises. So, when an individual, indeed, is situated in God, and thus they are in peace, that material misery disappears. And Krishna mentions specifically the threefold miseries. Very simply, these are miseries that arise from within ourselves. Oh, we can, indeed we do all the time, make ourselves miserable. There are miseries that arise from others, other living beings outside of ourselves. And then there are miseries that arise as a result of natural calamities. Just things that happen in nature. Oh, an earthquake, a storm, etc., etc. Those are the threefold miseries. Now, let's end this by looking at the last really sentence. In such a happy state, one's intelligence soon becomes steady. So being indeed in this state of divine consciousness, where indeed we now have control over ourselves, that is, we're practicing yogi. We have been practicing meditation for some time. We have been accessing the wisdom of the Vedic scriptures for some time. We have been living our lives in a sattvic way, in a good way, in a spiritual way. We have been growing spiritually in every way. We are now in a happy state. Being in that state, then it comes to the point where indeed one's intelligence becomes steady. Again, this state that I was speaking about before, that is, we are now living via wisdom. True wisdom. True wisdom. And we are living in such a way that wisdom now dictates everything for us. This being the case, what do we have? What do we not have? That is of the nature of the good. We have everything. We have indeed wisdom. We have peace. We have contentment. We have joy. We have happiness. We have control. Self-control. Again, a relaxed control. See, just to get back on this, to hearken back on this, an individual who is supremely in control of himself is someone who does so effortlessly, ultimately. Oh, at first there is that sadhana stage where you have to practice self-control. Sure. You have to make yourself do sadhanas. You have to make yourself, read and acquire wisdom and allow that wisdom to soak in, etc., to become a part of your being. So at first, yes, there's effort. But then it gets to the point where, indeed, this natural state of self-control becomes effortless. It gets to the point where, no, you no longer have to tell yourself, oh, no, avoid that thing that I'm addicted to. No, don't think about it. No, avoid it, avoid it, avoid it, avoid it. Gets to the point where you don't actually have to say that anymore. It is as if that thing that was closest to your heart but was harming you the most no longer even exists. It becomes effortless. So this is indeed how we acquire self-control. Via practice of yoga, practice of meditation, by acquiring wisdom. Read the Bhagavad Gita, read the Srimad Bhagavatam, read the Upanishads, the Ramayana, the Mahabharata, read the works of authentic gurus who are out there, etc., etc., etc. Acquire wisdom. Associate with other devotees who are on the path. Surround yourself with the good. And in time, indeed, you will have that self-control. So with that, I thank you all very much for listening to my commentary on these verses. And again, for a few minutes, I would like to see if there are any questions that anyone has about either what we discussed today or truly any aspect of Sanatana Dharma and Vedic spirituality. Very good. Here is a good first question from Salas, from Nick. And it is, Namaste Shri Acharyaji, in falling down or failing on the path, such as Ajamila from the Srimad Bhagavatam, does he or anyone in a similar position do harm to their guru in any way by failing to control their senses? Well, we know that this has been spoken about in several places. Prabhupada spoke about this quite a few times, actually, to the point where even a beginning person studying Prabhupada's writings has come across this. We know this is also in the Vedic scriptures. Other gurus have said this, that when an individual very specifically is an initiated disciple of a guru, the guru does indeed take a portion of their karma. Now, let me talk about this actually, because indeed many individuals have heard this. They've read this in various works, etc. And there's a little bit of misunderstanding in what is meant by this. Some people think that this means quite literally 100% of the karma of that student is now taken up by the guru. That is not correct. That is incorrect. Indeed, if that were correct, oh my Lord, if that guru initiated a certain number of disciples, at that point, they wouldn't be able to walk straight because they'd have so much bad karma coming to them. No, what is meant by this is several things. First of all, a small portion of the disciples' karma comes upon the guru, number one. Number two, it is really up to that guru what karma, what sorts of karma, how much karma that guru will take upon himself in the name of his disciple, in order to help his disciple. So indeed, it's ultimately up to the guru. There's always free will, and this is the thing that is often forgotten. It's interesting how philosophically free will is almost always the first thing that's forgotten with any sort of philosophical conundrum or philosophical discussion that takes place. But in this case also, the guru has free will. So indeed, when it comes to helping, let's say one specific disciple over another, it may be the case that indeed this one karma is a truly big stumbling block for that disciple, and the guru will take that karma upon himself, but with the idea of helping that disciple. He won't take necessarily all of the karma of that disciple. Could he? Yes. In theory, yes. In practicality, no, he wouldn't, because again, he has many things to do in this world. So indeed, it's up to the guru. But when a disciple does indeed fall down or do something that is offensive, could that affect the guru? Potentially, yes. But again, not 100%, and not if the guru is unwilling to take that karma or that bad effect. So I hope that answers the question for you. Good, very good. Here's another good question, actually, and this is from Kings R. And it is, does all anger start with contemplating the objects of material desire? What about anger we feel when someone hurts us or others? Interesting. Very, very good question, actually. And let me say it still applies, because what Krishna is speaking about is anger that arises when the individual is contemplating the object of the senses. Interestingly, I spoke about the 5 senses because those are the senses that most people can relate to. So that is the senses that are used to interact with things literally external to ourselves. But then the mind, the manas, is considered to be the 6th sense. And with the scenario that you're describing here, one is using mind. One is now contemplating via mind something internally, an object that is internal. So it's interesting, you asked this very, very correctly, when someone hurts us or others. Well, indeed, we are now contemplating that person, but internally. And that person is now the object that is creating anger for us. So indeed, the same scenario still applies, but at the same time, let me go a little bit deeper into this, actually. Because there is a lot of nuance when it comes to emotions, and I've tried to express this many ways and in many different ways and many different times. When it comes to the emotions, again, emotions are something that we're not to pretend that they're not there. Indeed, there are some times when emotions actually serve us, but we have to be very careful with them because they can lead to delusion. Now, when it comes to someone who has hurt us, someone who has harmed us, someone who has harmed someone else, etc., it's very natural that negative feelings toward that person would arise. Now, we're not to pretend that we're rocks. Oh, we see someone abusing some innocent person. Oh, let me not have emotion and just either ignore it or just try to deal with it in a rational way. Oh, sir, you should not be doing this. No. If we get frustrated, that's a very natural thing. If we become incensed by an injustice, that's a natural thing. There's a very big difference between experiencing emotions versus allowing emotions to overtake us. So indeed, interestingly, if we have someone who is very close to us and they pass away, we should feel a little bit sad. There's nothing wrong with that. We should not become overwhelmed with sadness and allow sadness to now dictate our actions. The same thing with anger, with frustration. If we see an injustice taking place, and a serious injustice, and we feel incensed, that's fine. But now the decisions that we make should not arise from the emotions. So indeed, if you see someone being abused, that should anger you, actually. That should make you feel incensed. But now, experiencing that feeling, don't make decisions based upon that feeling. You've experienced the feeling, you understand because of that feeling, an injustice has taken place. Now breathe, Be calm, use your wisdom. What do I do to alleviate this injustice? And now you spring into action immediately. So that's the difference. It's not that we deny emotion, but we don't allow emotion to dictate to us. We experience the emotions, but we're not a slave of the emotions. So I hope that answers the question. Yes, I have a question here in Temple. Speak up nice and loud, though.
Okay. So this is kind of related to the last one, but a little bit different. Can you talk about, like, what should a person do who has, like, problems with anger or is easily angered when they are in the initial stages of sadhana, and so they're still not totally there or making progress because of the sadhana, and like when it doesn't really have to do with something that's an injustice, like just something that they get easily triggered, or just anger is like a really quick emotion that kind of takes them over, and it's difficult to, you know, have any intelligence when they're in that state. What can you talk about what a person should do?
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And I will give you the real answer, the actual answer to this. When it comes to self-development in any way whatsoever, and in a moment I'll explain what I mean by this, and I'll give some illustrations to make this very, very clear. When it comes to serious self-development in any way, indeed, a person has to start. So this is what you're talking about, a person who's kind of a beginner, kind of starting. So yes, they haven't quite acquired those tools yet to deal with anger. After some time, they will. But as of right now, they don't. Of course, what happens? An individual will still find themselves in a normal circumstance. You know, usually they're not going to be in the midst of meditating and something will make them angry. But no, they're out in the world, whatever. Something happens. They get angry. And again, this progression that Krishna mentioned. You get angry. You're in delusion. You lose your memory. You lose your and it happens fast. And because you've lost your memory, you've acquired a little bit of wisdom, so you know, I really shouldn't get angry because A, B is... None of that exists in your mind right now. None of that exists in your mind right now. Right now, it's just, bam, the anger, the red hitting you in the face. This is where the struggle of sadhana now occurs in reality, in real life. In other words, even in those beginning stages, when you find yourself in that state, you are to just try and try to allow the better aspect of who you are, that is that true self, to just somehow reach out and try to grab back at those memories. Do your best to remember what you've learned. Now the thing is, in the beginning, maybe even a slight majority of the time, you're not going to be successful. And this is why I said I'm going to give you the real answer, not a new age answer, real answer. It will be tough. But this is what's interesting. That which is happening in the real world, that event that's happening outside of your sadhana life, is now part of your sadhana. You now use this to exercise your memory, your smaranam, to remember those lessons, those teachings, that wisdom that you acquired when you were calm. And much of the time you won't be able to, but you keep practicing that. You keep practicing it, and the same way that in your actual sadhana life you grow, you become better, in the same way, when you find yourself in that state in the real world, it will become easier to have that recall. More and more, it will become easier. And what you will see is that, and in this case, you can literally see it in a quantified sort of way. A year ago, it would take me, an hour to calm down. Well, a few months ago, it got to the point where, it took me 45 minutes to calm down. Now, within like 20 minutes, I'm better. In this way, you see that you're getting better and better and better. And it will eventually come to the point where, indeed, you don't get angry, or at least you don't lose control with that anger. Now, this is the nature of any kind of growth. An individual wants to go to the gym. They want to grow physically, and I mean literally. They want to grow muscles. They want to get into shape, etc., etc. The question that you were asking is similar to, all right, I began going to the gym a month ago. I struggle to do bicep curls, with 10 pounds, but I really would like to do 35 pounds. You're not going to be able to. Oh, you can try. You can lift up the 35-pound dumbbells, and you can kind of lift it once, maybe twice. You're not doing anything. You're not helping yourself. You're not actually growing muscles by doing that. It has to be systematic. No, start with the 10. That's all you can lift. Indeed, you're doing 10 pounds, and you can do maybe 10 reps, and after that, you have to let go. Start with the 10. And then you go up to 12.5 pounds. And then 15, and on like this. Eventually you're going to lift the 35. In the meantime, allow that knowledge of that progression, that natural progression which you've seen in your own life, to give you comfort and to know you're going in the right direction. Don't castigate yourself, don't beat yourself up because you only started going to the gym a month ago and I can't do 20 reps of 35-pound dumbbells. What's wrong with me? No, there's nothing wrong with you. Nothing wrong with you. You'll get there. You'll get there. But this is the nature of growth. There's, like I like to say, there's no magic pill. A person has started spirituality, but they also kind of have a little anger issue. You'll get better. You'll see yourself get better. But the idea that you started and, that's it, I need to get to the point as quick as possible, or I have zero anger, and the fact that I am not there yet makes me really angry. No. No. Use this as a comfort that you've seen in your own life. I'm not talking about you specifically. I'm talking about any person who's doing progression with anything. They can see in their own lives that they're getting better and better and better. Understand that, yes, it's not magic. In the meantime, use that very struggle itself when, yes, you're not sitting and meditating, you're at a job, you're wherever, and some stupid person makes you angry and, you're losing it now, etc. Use that as part of your sadhana and try to jog that memory and to remember all the lessons that you've learned spiritually. And again, at first, you're not going to succeed so much, but you keep trying, and the 3rd, 4th, 10th time, you can remember better. And instead of being angry the whole day, now you're angry half a day. Instead of half a day, you're angry for an hour. Instead of angry for and like that. And not only that, how often you get angry. Instead of it being once a week, it'll be every other week, once a month. Many months have passed by, and I haven't lost it in anger. It's been a whole year. Oh my God. It's been a whole year. And then eventually it gets to the point where if maybe one more time in your lifetime you lose your mind in anger, that will be it. It will happen. You never give up. Does that make sense? Good. Very nice. Thank you for that question. I'll see if maybe I can answer one or two more quick questions because we're definitely over time. Very good. Here's an interesting question from Robin. It is, Namaste Shri Acharyaji. What is the answer to those who are against scriptural literalism based off of their illusory experience of reality? Very nice. Very good. Well, let me say that the Vedic scriptures, this is something that you find, in religion in general. I have a PhD in religious studies, philosophy of religion very specifically, so I understand this term. In many religions, you have literalism in interpretation of scripture versus, a little bit more freedom and, maybe this is metaphor, analogy, etc., etc. Maybe it's something where it's more symbolic, etc. And let me say that when it comes to the Vedic scriptures also, you have both. When it comes, however, to very specifically philosophical principles, philosophical teachings in the Vedic scriptures, The Vedic scriptures are very, very different from other scriptures of the world, and specifically the Abrahamic scriptures. You don't find anything even remotely akin to philosophy in the strict sense of that term in the Abrahamic scriptures. I've read all the Abrahamic scriptures. Indeed, I've studied them deeper than most Abrahamists. The Vedic scriptures are radically different. They tend to be very, very, very philosophical. That is, that they reason with you, they give you wisdom, they give you principles for life, they give you explanations of the nature of reality, the nature of yourself, etc. They deal with metaphysics, with ethics, with ontology, with aesthetics, etc., etc. And this being the case, this is why when it comes to the Vedic scriptures especially, we are meant to take the Vedic scriptures literally because they deal with philosophy. Now again, even with the Vedic scriptures, there are areas where, oh yes, we are meant to understand them a little bit more symbolically, but when that is the case, the Vedic scriptures make that very clear. But again, when it comes to philosophy, yes, you must take philosophy literally. You have to take ethics literally. You have to take all these important things literally. If the Vedic scriptures say, do not kill someone for X reason, no, you take that literally. It's not, oh, it's meant to be symbolic. No, it's fine if we kill anyone. No, you don't make things up like this when it comes to straightforward philosophy. So indeed, the Vedic scriptures are primarily philosophical. That being the case, we are to accept them on face value. So I hope that answers the question for you. I'll see if I can maybe answer one more question that, I can answer very, very quickly within like a minute or two at the most, something like that. So please just give me a few moments as I look through these. Let me just say to Wise Sage, I don't check people out on YouTube, and it's offensive to ask me to check people out on YouTube. So no thank you. Very good. Let's see if there's a real question that I can answer now. A lot of very, very nice comments, actually. Yeah, sadly, I don't see a question that I can answer very quickly. I see one or two questions that would take, like 5 or 10 minutes to answer. So maybe I'll stop with the questions here. Many, many very, very nice comments, and I thank you for all of your wonderful comments and support, etc. But with that, yes, we will end here. And as always, I thank you all very much for being here. Please join us again next Sunday at 2 p.m. for our next live stream satsanga. And with that next one, as I mentioned, we'll be talking about the new book that has just come out, Interregnum. So with that, everyone, namaste. Jaya Shriman Narayana. Jaya Bhagavan Shri Krishna. Jaya Shri Guru. Sanatana Dharma Jayate. Dharma Rashtra Jayate. Suryavansha Jayate. Victory to Sanatana Dharma. Victory to the Dharma nation. Victory to the Solar dynasty. Evam Bhavatu. May such victory be so. And so it shall be. Dharma shall always be victorious. And with that, everyone, I ask you all that you please take very good care of yourselves in every way.